This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, being recorded. Okay.
Man, it really is being recorded. Bill, thanks.
Hello, can anybody hear me?
Yeah, we hear you, Gary. We hear you, Dewey.
Thank
Gary, how
you.
about you? You want to introduce yourself? Gary, are you there? You're on mute.
Yeah, Gary Miller, Nanole, Hamakua Coast, Big Island, always challenging to communicate up and down the coast. Very tough arena. HF is pretty much our only real hope. VHF just can't get through the gulches and up around the coast. So Meshtastic sounds interesting. If we've got enough people sprinkled along the coast, serving as little radio sites, we might be able to do some connectivity and use this as another possible backup to our backup to our backup. So anyway, that's why I'm interested. Back to you, Bill.
Thanks. And Denning, how about you? Denning is searching for the mute button.
Okay.
There you are.
Yeah. Hey, yeah, I was, just on this morning, I finally got around to it and pulled the thing out of the Amazon box, and I got it. It's a what's it called? LilyGo T Echo, and put that on my computer, and I got it flashed okay. And then I go onto my phone to get Meshtastic on my Android phone. And the first thing I found out is I don't have Google Play on it anymore because they had an update. Apparently, when I started searching for it, they had an update that wiped it out, and you had to reinstall Google Play. So after that, I figured that out. Okay, I got Meshtastic app on this for Android phone, but at this point, I can't get the two damn things to pair.
I can help you out with that. I've got a whole bunch of toys here to show you guys. I'll show you what, again,
Right, so, but I am interested in it. So that's just, my background.
Great. Thanks, Denning. And Denning lives in Hamakua Coast, along with Gary. Dewey, how you doing? You want to introduce yourself and say where you're from? You're in Kona.
Hi there. My name's Dewey, and I'm not doing worth a rip.
Okay.
Well, quite honestly, my LilyGo Echo crashed and burned. Go figure with that one. I don't know why, but I just took it apart, took out the battery, and it's sitting on the bench doing nothing, which is fine with me. Let it sit there.
Okay.
I fired up my T1000E, and it's working like a charm. Dropped right into place to replace the dead Echo. So
Okay.
my thing is, I can't for the life of me figure out how to put in that 40-meter talk group. So that's what I'm looking for today, because I've got, even with the T1000, I've got a decent signal to Spot 01, which is who is that? Devin, the guy up in Coloco. So no problem. My connection is still secure. So there you go.
Thanks. April, how about you?
Well, considering the world, I'm a little perplexed. I mean, there's like the best of the best and the worst of the worst. And I figure, you know what? We got to be in Ancom. We don't have a choice. So I'm doing, little by little best I can. And I am trying to find time to get more and more prepared. I just was working on my solar system. Anyway, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to see Annalene and everybody else. Thank you for being here.
So April, just so everybody knows, April is in Javi and Kapa'au in that area. Did I get that right, April?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things I'm hoping, if I don't bring it up, is that I'm hoping this will help the Kauai folks together, and I'm going to use the word proxy at some point. And then April, I'm going to talk to you guys. I think you're sort of remote, and this could really help you out. And then the Hamakua folks. So that's why I think this would be really useful for those three populations, each by a different way. But if we all stick together, I think you'll see how this will be useful. John Leakley, where are you, and what do you want to know about today?
There we go. I'm in Arizona,
Okay.
but I have family on in Kauai in Anahola, and I expect to be back there this summer. So excuse me, I'm having supper. So very interested, because Kauai is, as some of the others have indicated, spaces where there's no coverage, and you're going to need something, or else when the balloon goes up, you're going to have problems.
Sure. Okay. Alan, how about you? 86E.
Welcome, and thank you all for being here and for you to doing this. I'm Alan, 86E, KH6TU in Wailuku, Maui. So we have a few nodes here on Maui.
Mm-hmm.
I know very little about it, but I think it could be a very interesting thing, especially for our MCOM group. We just finished a management meeting this morning for Aries, and this hasn't come up yet. I'm looking at it as a possible, when things, get bad, will this really work? And I think it will. So there's also some, non-ham radio applications I can think for it. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Anyway, just want to learn more.
Thanks, Alan. Annaline, how about you?
Hi, I am in North Kohala with April, and she invited me to jump on. So I'm kind of new and not really sure what's going on.
That's great.
Okay.
We're all learning together. Liam, how about you?
Hey, aloha everybody. Sorry, in the middle of some housework and stuff, so I'm not doing video. My hair's all sideways and whatever. But anyway, yeah, just kind of heard about the presentation last night and have been interested in Meshtastic and what it has to offer. I'm curious how it's going to make it around our islands. As we know, we're kind of challenged with geography and topography, and even have issues wrapping 2 meter signal around the island. So kind of interested in seeing how that works, and yeah, just here for the show. Thanks.
Great. Steve, how about you? Let's see, Steve. Steve, you there?
Stepped away.
You want to tell us where you are and what you're interested in? Can't hear you, Steve. So maybe you're on. I don't see you being on mute, but if it's okay, I'm just going to step along here because we have a lot of things. Not hearing you, Steve. You want to try again? Okay, maybe he'll sort that out. So let me start off by saying I didn't know about Meshtastic 3 months ago. I was at the Hamfest we had here in Waimea, and the Hilo guys all had these little gizmos, the one that looks like a credit card, and they beeped each other and they got text messages, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So since then, it looks like I know that Denning's jumped into it, Dewey's got one, Gary's got one, there are a couple other people. On Maui, you'll find that Stan, who's in the 40-meter group, has one. April's got a fancy one. Okay, go for it, April. Show off there. But I will say that the technology of this I've been using for a few years for devices that look like this. And this is basically a temperature and humidity sensor we use for a fire sensor network using LoRa WAN. So this is 915 megahertz. I think you can see it right on the top there. So I have experience with these devices, but Meshtastic is a way of using that same technology for text. So if you guys are looking at that webpage, and I mentioned before, it's in the chat window there. If you go to elab.hpa.edu and look at the second line down for Meshtastic, no password needed. So the people this is usually used for is hikers or backcountry people who are out of range of cell or the internet. Emergency workers where the infrastructure is either overloaded, damaged, or non-existent. And if you're in Waimea and you try to use the cell phone during the parade, it doesn't work because everyone's streaming their video. So the cell network works, but it's overloaded. So it can be down from a hurricane, tsunami, earthquake, flood, wildfire, the big five for us, but it could be just overloaded. Next thing is you could have remote neighborhoods that are cut off from outside communication. So I'm talking about April, I'm talking about Hamakua, I'm talking about Kauai, where you're really, really far away from everything. And if there is a breakdown in communication, the internet, I think people assume the internet's always there. They assume the cell phones are always there, and when they're not, they get surprised in a hurry. And then the other one is casual users or events. The Hilo Marathon, they passed out about 50 or 60 of those little credit card things. Everyone had one with them, and it basically talked by Bluetooth to their phone. So they had a private sort of a chat group. And it was a really, really great solution for passing out something so they didn't have to worry about, did everybody have a certain app? Did everyone have a certain whatever? So I've got an example of every piece of equipment that you guys could probably use. So before I go into the background of this, you're probably looking at an entry level of one of these little guys, which is basically, it's called an ESP32. And without its guts, it looks like this. So this is there's two basic chips you're going to see. This is called an ESP32. It's also called a Heltec. You might see that on the back. I can't focus that very well. This one has a little screen on it. You can attach an antenna to that, which I'll get to in a few minutes. And the other kind of chip that you're probably going to see if you do the chip stuff is going to be one of these. This is by Rack Wireless. So this is a little guy right here. Any of the devices that you get, the reason I'm showing you the guts is one of these encased in a nice case. So even April's fancy Cadillac version over there, or Maserati, whatever, is basically one of these chips inside a nice little case that looks like a blueberry. Okay, so a blackberry, sorry. So I'm going to get into that and show you all of the different ones. I could probably show you the rest right now. Dewey, this is your instrument from HAL, the LilyGo. I'm not my favorite, and I'm curious to see how you took it apart. Mine still works, so I don't need to take it apart. And then the other ones that you might see what's called a LilyGo. This is a LilyGo without its case, and it comes in a bigger case called a tracker, which a lot of hikers use. It looks just like this, only with a plastic case around it and a clip, so you can put it on your backpack. The fancier version of that is the LilyGo Supreme. All of these have exactly the same power. They just differ in the amount of battery they have. That is a humongous battery. The battery that's inside the small ones is this little guy right here. And that you can get a bigger battery if you have a case for it. So this is 1100 milliamp hours, and that's 3000. You don't need to know the numbers, except that this one will last about 6 to 12 hours. This one will last a couple of days. And when we make solar powered units like this looks very fancy, but it's basically one of these in a fancy box with a solar panel. It looks really, really complicated, but it's not. Everything that you've seen so far is exactly the same chip. You can 3D print cases. My students did this for me yesterday. That's a nice fancy case with a big battery. And I think that's it. The nice thing is I just ran out of things to show you. Oh, the last thing. If you are running a very powerful station and you want to go beyond that, some of us are hams. If you have a ham radio license, your limit on this is not the 4 watts that's limited by the FCC. You can go up to 10 watts. Well, this is a 4-watt unit. And you can put an external antenna on this and put it on a roof or something like that. This is only about $90. So we're none of the things that I'm showing you here is over $100. And I don't know how much April paid for hers, but these little guys, these little kits, if you want entry level, and I would say, and I'm just going to say this and then we'll get into the details. If you want entry level, go on Amazon and buy this kit. This little kit right here is one of these. And I mean, if I could put this together, anybody can. You can put this together, and this has a battery, it has the unit, it has the antenna, it has a cool little case, it has a little screen on it. And what we're doing is we're configuring these and then passing them out. All of my students have these. So lasts about 9 to 12 hours on a charge. Charges with USB, which is nice on the back. You don't have to do a whole lot of fancy stuff about this. And if you're trying to take notes, I see Howard furiously writing over there. What you'll find is you'll see all of this stuff is on the webpage, so you don't need to do that. There is one last unit that just arrived today. I'm really, really happy about it. It's pretty cool. I ordered this, and this is the latest of them all. This comes out by Rack Wireless. And this is basically, if I were going to say, if you're going to order something for emergency communications, April, your crowd, I'd say grab one of these. This is a Rack Wireless. It's called what is it called? Something 2. Yep, Pocket version 2. Long battery, on-off switch, screen, buttons for turning it off, lights to see if it's doing its stuff, and charge. And I think these are about $80. And you can see on the front, it's showing you what's going on. You probably can't with that the monitor there. So that's the full spectrum right there. So before we get into how to fix these things, and Dewey, I will talk to you about that. Let me just go through the background, which is on that webpage. So if you're following along, great. I'm going to go fairly briskly, but yell at me, wave your hand, whatever, if you have a question, and I'll stop and talk about that. Okay. So the link in the chat is elab.hpa.edu if you guys are looking for it. And second line down says Meshtastic. So first of all, this is free. It's unlicensed, and it's a messaging solution that's text only. So I can't remember. I think that was Bill. No, that was John you were talking about, or maybe Alan was talking about Arden. Arden is a similar sort of a thing where you're using a phone. This is just text. But the beauty about this is that it's absolutely lowest level of communication that you can get. It's not going to send pictures. You can't sell video. You can't send, live anything. It's just basically text. And if someone sends you a message and you're not on, it doesn't stay there. You have to be live to see the message. That's another thing that people don't really see. It's always linked to a phone, or it can be linked to a computer, as you've seen before. And if you have one of the newer Macs, the Silicon they call it, which is the M1, 2, 3, 4, all of the apps that run on your phone and on your iPad also run on that computer. That's how I program these devices, because it makes it a whole lot easier. Dewey, when you're doing yours, you're going to have a long key. Typing that in will make you a crazy person in a hurry. So I recommend you use either your phone and copy and paste to get the authentication code. I'll explain that more in a minute. It uses low power radios in a mesh configuration. So if you guys are looking, and what I'll do is I'll just share my screen here. If you are looking at the map of the Big Island, or the map of Hawaii, really, let me see, share. Oh, I have to let that happen. If you scroll down, you're going to see a picture of the Big Island, and you're going to see a direct link to Oahu. There's no way in the world that something that's 160 milliwatts, which is incredibly small, can go all the way from the Big Island to Oahu, but it does. So when you see this little thing in my hand, this little antenna on the top goes the 220 miles between us and Honolulu, and it does it on a regular basis. So let me see here, parallel zoom, recording, cancel. It looks like I'm not going to be able to share the screen on this thing right away, but if you guys can scroll down, I could probably take a picture of it and put it in the chat window. And I'm going to show you some live stuff as well. So there, I'm going to drop that right in the chat window. You guys probably see a diagram there. So if you see that diagram in the chat window, you can see this was taken about 2 weeks ago. If you looked at it today, which I'll show you in a few minutes, there are a lot more of these things. So I would say 2 or 3 weeks ago, there were 4 or 5 different stations on the Big Island, and now there are probably 24. I myself have configured and deployed probably 15 or 20 of them. So there's a lot out there. So going back up to the top of that page, and then I'll stop talking. Since it links to your phone using Bluetooth, there's no internet needed. I like to tell the story that at the hacker convention in Las Vegas, all of the guys there, all the men and women who were hackers, used these because they could communicate with each other. And they were, of course, afraid the NSA was listening. Well, the NSA doesn't listen because it's basically peer-to-peer. I suppose they could, but it makes it harder. To link beyond the mesh links, you're not talking. So if I want to talk to April, I don't have to talk to April. I have to talk to Maui, which this unit is right now in connection with Haleakala, which if I look behind me, there's a mountain in the way, but it's somehow getting to Haleakala. And then if April can see Haleakala, or someone in her neighborhood can, basically it goes from me to Haleakala to April. We have several of these in very high locations. The one that you see on that little text map over there is from Waikiki, which is at 4,500 feet just south of me. It's on the slope of Mauna Kea. It's a neighborhood up there, and we have a radio tower up there, and that's how it's getting really inter-island. Haleakala, there's one at the summit. There's also one a little bit lower, and then there's one in Ho'okipa at the pillbox. If you're looking at the map live, you'll be able to see those. By the way, if you are curious and you're bored of me talking, go to Meshtastic, go to affirmtech.com, which I'll put the little link in right here. If you go to affirmtech.com and click on Mesh Sense, you can actually see, I'll put the link in right here, meshsense@affirmtech.com. If you click on this link, and I won't be offended if you guys do that instead of watching me. If you do that, you're going to see live what's going on right this second, which is really useful. Now, I have devices that I have connected to this as well. That's the global map. You can go and look at Czechoslovakia if you want to. Oddly enough, there are very few in China. I'm sure it's a different story. Dewey, don't get me started. But you'll find that if you click on that link, you can see live what's going on right now. Now, I can actually click on my devices and see all of the chats that are going on between the devices because I'm hosting one of those, but that's further on down the line. So you don't have to have line of sight. The other thing that's confusing for people is, let's say I wanted to talk to someone in Tennessee. I could, but right now my devices are talking by radio, which is the network you see on there. If I wanted to talk to Kauai and you guys were beyond radio range, we would use something called MQTT, which means that one of my devices or a device that I'm connected to connects to a server on the internet. You guys connect to a server on the internet, and then we can share messages back and forth. And I think that being 90 miles from Oahu, you Kauai guys, you're probably going to rely on something like that. But it doesn't mean that you have to be able to connect to Oahu. Anyone who's on the mesh can connect to the internet by Starlink, by whatever satellite internet they have, or you can use your cell phone in what's called proxy mode, which means that these devices talk to your phone uses the internet to get out to the internet, and then you're talking to Oahu or Tennessee or whoever you want to. So those are sort of the legs of this, how it gets really beyond that. These guys use a frequency usually used or originally used by first generation cell phones, the ones that had the big antenna on them. There were 3 bands that were designated by the government as industrial, science, and medical band, 900, 2.4, and 5.8. This is the first one that cordless phones used, and then everybody said we need to go faster, so they used 2.4. That wasn't fast enough, so they went to 5.8. So when you use Wi-Fi right now, you're using the last 2. Very rarely do you see these being used, which is great because these devices are still out there. They're very cheap. And all the hardware that people used to use for the first one, like antennas and cables and adapters, all still work. So there's a plethora of things out there that you can use with these things, which is really, really great. I'm going to stop now for questions because I've talked too much. Any questions so far? I'm going to about halfway through that.
One quick question.
Sure, Howard.
So in order for me to make a call, let's say to Oahu, how do you actually do that? In other words, do I need to know, I'm looking here at your map, do I need to know the name that they've called themselves on these spots on the map? Or how do I quote, make a call or text a message to specific?
Great question. There are 2 ways you're going to see when I show you my screen. There are what are called channels. The primary channel is baked into every device, and that's how your telemetry is done. If I want to know the temperature, at someone else's thing, if you have a device that has data in it, it'll show you the temperature. The primary channel is everybody. It's not encrypted, and everybody communicates through that. You can make your own channels, and there are 10 channels. Oddly enough, I'm seeing channel 13 show up, and I'm not sure how that works, but there are 10 channels, and what you do is you decide, I'm going to make a channel called Howard. And then when you make a channel called Howard, there's an encryption code, which is about 14 characters long. And all you do is you copy that and you send it to your friends and say, hey, join my channel. The other way is when you say make a channel, there's Stan. If you go on a channel, you can actually make a QR code, and then people don't have to type anything. They just put their phone on the QR code, and it adds the channel to their device. So that's the first thing, is channels. The other way is direct connection. So if I wanted to talk to Stan or Dewey, what I can do is Stan and Dewey will show up under the direct connection, what are called nodes, which I'll show in just a second. And the nodes, you can just click on a node and you can say, send a text message to Stan. And if Stan's device is on, which it has to be for me to show, the text message will show up on his device.
Second question then is, when it shows up, does it make any sound? Is there any noise? Is there any?
Yeah, yeah. You know the little credit card ones, since they don't have a screen, they beep at you.
Okay.
And some people turn that off, but that kind of defeats the
The
purpose.
message doesn't hang around. So if you're not attuned to it, then
Yeah,
you need to be aware of it. Okay.
exactly. Stan, I'll introduce you real quick because we're moving along here. Stan's on Maui, and Stan shows up because he's got one, and he's in Makawao town, so on the slope facing away. And Stan actually talks to my device here because Stan talks to Haleakala, Haleakala to me. So just Stan, did I miss anything? Stan, you're on mute. I also see Jason there, and I don't know Jason. Where are you, Jason?
Sorry, here in Hilo.
Oh, great. Wait, you're one of the guys that showed me this in the first place.
Maybe I'm not sure.
Yeah, I will say that Bill Hansen came to one of our meetings where I showed this to him, and now he wants to do it over in Hilo for you guys. So you're going to hear from
Awesome.
Bill Hansen from Civil Defense.
Yeah, I have like 6 of my own deployed around town.
That's you. I thought so.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you guys are going to see on the map that I put up there a whole lot of Hilo guys. So Jason, if you go on the chat box there, you'll see some of Jason's devices on there, and he doesn't name them Jason. By the way, if you are a ham and you say I am a licensed ham, it changes the identity of your device to your call sign. It doesn't do anything to make you more powerful or anything like that. It just changes that and it takes off encryption because the FCC says if you're a ham, you can't use encryption like that. Travis on Maui put up on Haleakala. Yeah, the BIARC members placed the MLO station on Mauna Loa. That's Jason. Before I forget, Jason, one of my big tasks is I just put a unit up at Girl Scout camp in Waikiki facing you on Mauna Loa. It's a bootleg unit. It's one of these. Patience, everybody. So I put one of these guys up at Girl Scout camp, and it's reaching your Mauna Loa unit, and it's going to link Mauna Loa to Haleakala direct. Ask me about drones later, and I'll tell you about that. So I see another note here. It says, seems like a connection between Oahu and Kalepa here in Kauai might be possible. It depends on altitude. So like Jason mentioned, he's got one on Mauna Loa at the Dogleg, which is probably 6,000 feet, Jason. Is that right? 6 or 7?
I believe so. I know that it was Luke and Gary that had gone up.
Right.
They're BIARC members. And yeah, it's pretty up high. It's at the actual antenna area.
Right, right. And I will tell you, I was thinking of you guys when I took one of these up to Mauna Kea. I was doing work for Keck, and I put one of these things up there in the window, and I got you guys and Oahu and Maui, and I think I could have gotten Kauai if you guys had any devices because you're at 13, almost 14,000 feet. So in answer to the question about altitude, the higher you get, the longer your range is going to be. How fractures the metastatic system? Uh, Backbone? There's no such thing. Yeah, there's no such thing. Yeah, and they're using mesh core, which is a different kind of a technology. I could get off in the weeds about a lot of this stuff, but let me finish the big things, and then I'll show you how to configure some of these things if you're getting stuck. So the next thing is that the 900 megahertz is kind of bendy. Those of us who are radio folks know that there's UHF and VHF. This is higher than normal UHF, but since it's very, very small data packets, and the overhead on this is very, very low, and it's a very, very high signal to noise ratio, which actually shows up when we're doing our work. So it's a very quiet band. It's very small data rates, so it can actually go much farther than the normal voice communication. So those of you guys who were talking about using digital and stuff like that, this is like digital, only one step further. Very, very low data rates, very, very small packets, and really, really good signal to noise ratio. It's free, unlicensed, and it uses what's called LoRa WAN. So the sensors that I mentioned before that were used for telemetry, that's these guys right here. This is LoRa WAN that's been around for 5 or 6 years. I would recommend, I mean, this is like walking into the swamp in Princess Bride. I was happy to get out of that swamp. But these things here, there's 3 different kinds. There's SenseCap, which has their own dashboard. There's what's called the Things Network. And then there's another one called Chirp. If you've heard those words before, it's the same technology, but it's not Meshtastic. Meshtastic is using firmware on devices that are already very, very popular for a lot of different things and using them in a different sort of a way. Next thing is they're relatively inexpensive. All the ones I showed you guys, except the BlackBerry one, is about 30 bucks. And some of the kits include a battery. That's the one I showed before. This right here on Amazon is $30, 31, 32. Battery, case, unit, antenna, the whole 9 yards. So you can, if you want to pass these out to an emergency group, that would be the battery version that's a little bit more robust because it has a screen. If you want to be really simple, like I said about the Hilo Marathon, Jason, I'm not sure if you were part of that group, but you passed out the little credit card ones, the T1000s at the marathon. I thought that was a brilliant solution because you guys can actually, did you do that, Jason? Was that you guys?
I know that it was Bayark, but not myself. Yeah, I missed that event.
Oh, that was
But thank you, April, for the invite.
Yeah. Glad to have you, Jason. And Stan's over there all quiet. As I mentioned before, some small units have a battery life of 4 to 12 hours. Some of them are solar powered, and those are mainly for repeaters. And when I say repeater, it's not the repeater like radio people use that term, where A has to talk to this and this talks to this. The difference between all of these devices is 99% of the time you're going to be in what's called client mode, which means that April sends me a text message. My little unit says, hey, did it come from April or someone else and someone else? And when it gets to 3 hops, it stops. So it'll go 3 hops, or you can set it for up to 7, but it'll go and hop around the network until it gets to me. What these guys do, if these are in repeater mode, is they repeat everything. They don't wait, they don't count the hops. So anything that touches this device that Jason has up in Mauna Loa or the one that I have in Waikiki, anything that hits it goes right back out. And that's what repeater, that term is used, if you see that being used in this Meshtastic world. Next, they're programmed using Bluetooth on a phone app. I don't have an Android. I'm sorry, Dewey or Denning. I use my phone, but what I most of the time use is I use Chrome. So I'm going to walk through how to set these up in a minute if that's of interest to you guys. Basically, in waving my hands, you get the device out of the box, and I have one here I could start up with if you want to. You get this out of the box, you connect the USB to your computer, you open up Chrome, and there are 2 programs you want to use. First is the flasher, which is in there. That sounds dirty, but it's a flasher. The link is in the weblog there. And you flash this with the latest software or firmware. They come with version 2.5. I would recommend using 2.6 and further up for a reason I'll explain in a second. And then when you've done that, write down the code number. You'll see everything I have, I put a label on it because I've got a lot of these floating around, and if I can't see which one it is, I don't know which to configure. So if you only have one, don't worry about it. But if you have more than one of these things, write down the code number or the identification and put it on a sticky note or, marker or whatever on the side. And then the next thing you do is all of the different configuration utilities, Chrome, the Meshtastic app on your computer, and the one on your phone have different subtle differences. There's no uniformity to them. And for example, if you're on Chrome and you try to set up the channels that we were talking about a minute ago with Howard, it doesn't work very well. But on the phone, it works perfectly. So make sure if you can't get to where you want to get, use the other device. That's just my advice for you on that. And then
Can I ask one thing? I know
Yeah,
you're
go ahead, Bill.
I don't want to stop your momentum, but I just wanted to back up a little bit.
Oh, please stop my momentum.
But when I'm looking at the map that you posted, the inter island map with the inter island connections, I'm assuming by looking at this that the inter island connections are going to the nodes that you were referring to as repeaters.
No.
No, they're not.
No,
So,
they're going to handheld devices.
so those handheld devices are at a very high altitude, though.
No,
They're
that's
not.
yeah, that's a great question.
So you're getting like it looks like a direct connection from the Big Island to Oahu with 2 devices that do they have line of sight or
The altitude is the key. So normal line of sight, Howard knows this, he's a sailor, is 70 miles. But for every 1,000 feet you're up, it goes out much, much farther. So the people I'm talking to on Oahu, maybe, I mean, one of them is Montanalist, but several of them were in downtown. So the higher you are, the farther your range. That's the first thing. The second thing is if I counted how many repeaters there are in the state of Hawaii, Jason, you can correct me on this. Jason has one, I have one, Haleakala has one, and there's another one in Hawaii. There's 4.
okay.
That's it.
Okay. All
So
right.
everything else is a client talking to another client
Just people having this in their homes, their QTH, whatever,
or their car
or
or
their
whatever.
car or something like that. And in order to get island coverage, um, I imagine somebody has to be high enough that you can get into areas that would normally be blocked. In other words,
Yeah.
is there any strategic thought or planning as to who has nodes and where to get island-wide coverage? Or
Well, let me use Javi as an example, and then I'm not sure. Ted, what are you in Kapaa, right?
he's muted, but yeah, he is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I am.
Tad, you're in Kapaa. So
Right.
if Tad wanted to talk to say Barking Sands, someone over there in your Waimea, right? You're probably not going to get a direct connection, but you may be able to mesh with someone that's in Hanapepe, and Hanapepe would get you over to Barking Sands. The same thing as if you wanted to get to Princeville, you probably couldn't get a direct line to Princeville, but someone up on the hill in Princeville might have one. And then from Princeville, you can get down to Honolulu. You see how that might work? And since these things are mesh units and they're all clients, there's no hierarchy of repeater or whatever. They're all clients. It's very democratic. The example for Hamakua with Gary's group is all Gary has to have or Denning has to have, and Denning has Starlink and Gary has Starlink. All someone has to do is reach one of those two, and the Starlink can get them out to the internet, and then they can use this what's called MQTT, which I'll explain in a second. That's how they would get out of their area. But to communicate within their area, they need no infrastructure. But you're right, Bill, the higher one person is, the more mesh units they can interact with. If you're in a hole, you're probably going to interact with just a few mesh units. If you're very high, you're going to interact with more. But as
Yeah,
far
I'd like to take the example you just gave of like Tad being in Kapaa talking to somebody in Waimea.
right,
And if you look at our terrain, there is a lot of mountainous territory between, say, where Tad is and where Waimea is. There's no line of sight, not even close.
right,
And not only that, we tend to be clustered in areas. Our users tend to be like, in Waimea or in Kalaheo or in Kapaa or places where the terrain is relatively flat, or in some cases, maybe up in Wailua where higher elevation. But for the most part, not a lot of line of sight exists. Uh, so I'm trying to imagine getting fairly low power at 900 megahertz from where, say, Tad is to Waimea, and I'm thinking somebody would have to be near a mountaintop to do that. But you're saying that's not the case necessarily.
Not necessarily. If there are more mesh units, you're going to have more ways of getting from A to B. But a repeater on a hill is a really, really good idea. A perfect case of that example that is Jason. I know you have mountains, but we have 13,000-foot mountains, so not a contest. But for Jason to get from Hilo to me here in Waimea, he has to go up to about 6,000 feet on Mauna Loa, come over to where I am at 6,000 feet on Mauna Kea, and then go to 10,000 feet, which is on Stans Island on Maui. You see how altitude is the key? And that's where you put the repeaters if you want to, is on high altitude. So in your case, yes, you could have multiple clients, and you could just make the hop level for Kauai 7 instead of 3, and it would find ways of getting there. I mean, short of having a buoy out at sea, you're going to have someone at high altitude to get over those ridges. Is the short answer.
I could throw in a couple things. And the repeater concept is, like you said, it just passes it on.
Mhm.
But I believe you once said that in the case of units that we would have with us as a client, it still basically is going to pick up and be part of the hopping process. So in a sense is also a repeater.
Yes.
All right. And so the more of these that are out there, the more the net or mesh is then available for what Bill is talking about here, with regard to, okay, so how does this work? Well, the more people that have them, but then I believe that the thing that you just mentioned about the buoy, we had discussed the idea that maybe using fish buoys, getting the fish buoy people to let us put some of these units offshore. that begins to now help us along these shorelines be able to communicate up and down the shore by using the fish buoys. The other is that I've read somewhere that a lot of people are using them in disaster situations where they then run them up with a drone or a balloon and get some altitude, and you put your repeater up above the site, and now people can communicate during that disaster.
Right. Yeah. So my students do a lot of stuff with drones, and we've flown one of these things up to, well, beyond where it's legal. That's all I'll say. And we got a very, very clear signal to Oahu with the drone, which is great because you can stay up for 20 minutes. Everybody in the area, in that coverage area, has access to that. I'm also, before I forget, we're actually learning how, Jason, you might appreciate this. These weigh 400 grams, which is the payload capacity of a Mavic Air 2. And we're actually deploying these in areas we can't get to by drone. We lay them down and let them go. So that's another story. Howard, you brought up another point, and that is that uh, Gary shouldn't, by any radio rules, be able to see Maui, but he can. And so he can communicate with me by going from Hamakua to Maui to me. And I'm not line of sight to Dewey and Kauai. So I communicate to Haleakala and back to Kona to get to Dewey and Kona because he's facing away from me. There's Hualalai in the way. So, Bill, to your point, as you get more and more of these things, you'll be able to get over those ridges on islands. But I think the key for you guys, and it's worked for us, is as soon as someone puts a mesh unit up on the West Oahu Mountains, so you're looking at Kolikoli Pass, or even Waianae or Nanakuli, that sort of area. If you get someone high enough in that range, maybe Palehu Ridge, which is above Makakilo, and I know about the radio stuff in Bill. I know that, Bill, I know the Kauai radio stuff very well. Once you're off island, everyone who can see that off island site can actually talk to each other. So you might be in Princeville talking to someone on Oahu who's talking to someone in Kilauea. That's just how weird it is. It's beyond black art as far as I'm concerned, but it's got some huge possibilities. So all I'll say is just try it out. Yeah. That's a good question. I'm getting more questions. You texted a plane across the state. You're texted in a plane across the state. Yeah, I did too. Yeah, since it's Bluetooth, and then they don't stop you from fly inter island with these things, and you'll see everybody. So just get a window seat and put this in the window, and you want to see 200 devices in a hurry. That's a great way of doing it. Yeah, I did it on the mainland too. How do you know you're not going through Haleakala? Best bet is if you are curious about the paths, I put the link in there. Go to the one that says meshsense.affirmtech.com. I'll pull up the menu here, the map here, so we can talk about it. I may have to drop off of the call for a second because my my privileges on my computer don't allow me to share my screen yet. But if you go to that and if you zoom out and wait a second, what you'll see is you'll see all of Jason's units. Jason, do you know any of the names of yours besides the one that's JOE? He's one of our radio guys. Jason, do you have any that we can pick up?
Actually mine is turned off, but if you ever see it, some novelty names like mashed potatoes,
I saw that one.
Smoked meat. Yeah, so it's just poking fun at the yeah, it's I believe in its purpose, but I also believe that keeping it light with our community. But I know it's growing. The interest is growing, and we're actually on my end. I'm actually trying, because I work in the domestic violence field. I'm actually working with other agencies to discuss the use for those individuals who live out in the rural area who may need actual support. So yeah, tying it into like disaster or crisis management.
That's a great idea. I love mashed potatoes. I'm so glad to meet the guy that actually did that. I laughed like hell when I saw that one. Yeah, smoked meat. I think there's some other ones. Also, if you are looking at the map, I don't know if you guys are looking at that. It turns out I have to quit Zoom to get back on to sharing my screen. But if you're looking at that live map, I'm hoping you guys are, you're going to see Stan is talking directly to Haleakala. So is someone in Kohala. So are all of my units. And then you're going to see Haleakala is talking directly to Oahu. Now, this changes every few minutes because these are people that just happen to be they have their device on. If you turn your device off, your little icon goes away. It's not like a map. It's an active map. The map that I showed you on my screen was one from a few weeks ago. And you can see there's a whole lot more going on in Hilo. You'll also, if you look at that map, you'll see MLO1, and then you'll see 4A, 6A. Now, if you're not looking at the map, just ignore what I just said. But if you're looking at the map of the Big Island and you see MLO1 and you say 4A, 6A, MLO1 is Jason's up in Mauna Loa, and 4A, 6A is mine across the valley on Mauna Kea. By the way, I tried to drop one of these things at the top of Mauna Kea, and I just happened to be with the safety officer for the Mauna Kea stewardship, and he says, "Oh, no, you can't do that." But there are a lot of people that are doing this sort of bootleg. They're putting them out in the hills. Now, you can see a lot of connections are hitting Haleakala because it's perfect for radio. It's very high, and it's between everybody. And then from there, you can see it's going down into the valley. So Tavis is one of the guys who's mentioned up in here. There's one that's, you can see Stan is in there as well, but I don't think your device is on right now. It's not showing up. And then you can see a whole bunch of pathways going over to Oahu. The interesting thing for me is when I look at Oahu, it used to be 3 guys, and now it's probably a dozen. And that's just a few weeks ago. So this is changing pretty darn fast. I'm going to stop talking. Any other questions before we go further? No? Can these get surveilled? Can we use satellite signal? Can I opt not to lose encryption? Yeah, you can encrypt and just don't use your ham license. Yeah, it's very, very simple. Can these get surveilled? Can we use satellite devices to send signal? Yes and yes. They can get surveilled, but if you're encrypting your conversations, it would take someone with effort to break into it. But most of the people are saying like, how is the weather today? You know, oh, meet me at the supermarket, like that. I've line of sight to Hana. A repeater there would be helpful for Hamakua. That's exactly right. So April, I mean, you can reach Haleakala. You don't need, Hana. But like we talked about at the last meeting, what you could do is for $100, you could buy one of these and have it sent to someone in Hana and say, hey, put this on your deck somewhere. It's solar powered. Even if it's not solar powered, if you close this lasts for 3 days. And these are the units that I'm putting around. I made my own too. There's an ugly one out there in the yard charging, but this is a great waterproof solution. And all you would do is, well, April, you probably have it sent to you and then send it to them. You program it through this little puka right there. And as soon as you do that, then it shows up on your phone, and then you're off to the races. But this is what Jason, this is what I'm putting up around where you guys are. I've tried to get one up at Mauna Loa Observatory, but they're not accepting stuff right now. Darren up there. I'm working on that.
We're all hopeful. I think Luke actually had one at Halepohaku, and it was showing up as Halepohaku, and it actually worked a lot better for me.
Yeah.
To bridge over to Maui and to Oahu,
right.
Than the Mauna Loa repeater did, at least for my experience. And I actually placed one at my son's home in Ewa Beach, hoping that it would create a bridge. I was hoping to put one in my parents' home, another station G2, in Maile, in Waianae, hoping to build a bridge over to Kauai, so that we could all support one another.
So Tad, you Kauai folks, what he's talking about is using one of these. It's called a G2. Jason, these are about $100, right? But what you would do is, if you wanted to help the people on Kauai, you could use the Omni antenna like this, and I'll go over antennas in just a minute. But if you really wanted to help the people on Kauai, since you're 90 miles away, the beam width of that would be about 5 to 8 degrees. You'd use a Yagi antenna, which would be, it looks like a fish skeleton. And Jason or his son on Waianae would actually aim it at Kauai, and then it would act as a client or a repeater, either way. But everybody on Kauai who could see to the east would be able to use it. And that's a great solution. But that's the kind of community stuff we're seeing is, I'm doing this because I have a grant for part of this stuff, but this is not going to break anyone's bank. And if it helps your community out, and if you can get a group of people together to work on it, it's fun. There's a lot of gadget stuff to it, which appeals to me. And the fact that you can use it in an emergency is fantastic. I hope we don't have another Iniki or Eva, but I lived through that one, and we didn't have power for 10 days. So on Oahu. So
Bill.
I'm seeing.
I'm going to share that. here is one of
Oh,
my
yeah.
antennas. It's
There you
a
go.
Rockland,
Yep.
yeah, stronger DB.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing that, Jason. Yeah. So what's Jason showing you is an antenna. I'll undo some of the ones that I've got out here. Um, so you'll see ones that are
This little shack he has.
fairly long. The longer the antenna, the more directional they are, which isn't always good. So back up so you guys can see the whole thing. That's a fairly large antenna. It's like a broomstick. This is 8 decibels. What it's doing is, I give you 60 seconds on antennas. An antenna like this is 2.5 decibels. This is better than the one that comes with the devices. The device antennas look like this. They are maybe 1.5 decibels. If you think of a candle, the light going in 360 degrees, vertical and horizontal, that's 0 dB. So it's not focused at all. This is focusing it a little bit like a pie tin or a frisbee. As you get higher in decibels, this is a 2.5, it basically makes it a narrower and narrower frisbee. This is a 4 decibel, right? Which is a really good one. And then like Jason was saying, if you've got a 4 or an 8 or a 10, you're basically making a skinnier and skinnier frisbee, but you better make sure that that frisbee is aiming at who you want it to, because otherwise the people underneath it are not going to see it at all. You've probably noticed this if you've ever gone to, at the Kona airport, you can't get cell coverage if you're right under the cell tower, because the cell tower is basically broadening out and nothing's going straight down. So that's, I guess, my 60 seconds on antennas. That's a good one. Thanks for sharing that, Jason. That's really, really good. I'm good.
Bill, it's Gary. Oh,
Gary, go ahead.
yeah, I was the one with the line of sight to Hana. If I get elevation from the waterfront,
Yep.
I can actually get Hana. But how do I? One of the things I wanted you to touch on is how do we set up our system to be able to get to the internet, to hop to the next one, so that I can get out of my hole
Right.
if there's nothing at Hana yet.
Sure. The best bet is I could show you in the configuration, but there are two ways to enable what's called MQTT, which is the messaging using the internet. The first thing is if you have one of the devices, and I may have to just like go on the call on another device and then come back on, is that you enable MQTT on LoRaWAN, which lets the devices send messages to each other. That's the easy one. And then on the lower part of the configuration, there's an MQTT module, and you have to enable that as well. And Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know what realm you're using, but you can use MQTT US, which is everybody messaging in the entire country. And if you enable that, you're going to see Arkansas and California and Arizona, all kinds of cool stuff. Steve, you'll show up on that, or John. The other one is if you say there's a little button at the bottom that says if you just want Hawaii, click this button, and then basically you're only talking to people in Hawaii. It's probably easier if I show that on a screen, but that's how you get out, is you do that.
And that can be on the phone app or the computer app.
Right. I can actually show you on the phone. Yeah, that's probably an easy way. That way I don't have to screen share. So I'm going to open up my Meshtastic here and I'll talk to, I don't know which one, 23AC. Let's talk to that one. So A6F, connected new radio. So I'll just show you as you walk through this. So on my phone, I don't remember which one of these things here is 7A6F. What you'll see is you'll see subscribed. So if you see that screen right there, it says subscribed. This is me talking to the device, and you can see my phone is blinking at me. It's saying, oh, I just discovered someone, just discovered someone. So the next thing I'll do is I'll go to settings, and this is the screen that you see for settings. I should be doing this on the web, but I'd have to get off the Zoom call. First place to go is go to LoRa, and what you'll see is you have to set the zone. What I'm noticing, a lot of people, they're using this and it says unset. Jason, maybe you know, but I think that means that they're not using the right encoding, because when you first start these up, there's a big red banner that says set the zone, and you have to set your zone to the United States. The next thing to do is if you go lower, you see these buttons that say show MQT, OK to MQTT. So MQTT is a mouthful, and what it means is message queuing transport, telemetry transport, which doesn't really make sense because it doesn't queue anything, but it's an old word that we still use, MQTT. All we have to know in the group is it means that you're able to send messages to each other, but you're also able to send messages to people that are not on your mesh by going to the internet. And there are two ways to do this. If you go down here to where it says, if I go to settings again, I'll go a little lower. I'll go to where it says module configuration. And on the bottom half of the page, you see MQTT there, right? So if I touch MQTT, if I enable it, two things you'll notice. I just enabled MQTT. You see the button below that's not enabled? Proxy. So Kauai folks, Tad, you guys, if you enable that, if none of my devices in my mesh or anyone who's talking to me can't get to the internet, it'll come through my phone and use AT&T in this case, which means it'll work about half the time. Joke there. So client proxy means it'll use the internet from your phone to get out, right? If you're on Wi-Fi, it uses it anyway, which is pretty cool. So if you're on a phone in your home network, like Gary, if you're on your home network and you enable proxy mode, it'll go out your Starlink if your Starlink is connected to your Wi-Fi network at your house, is it? Yeah? Yep. So anyone who's in the Hamakua Coast wants to get out on Starlink, all they have to do is be able to touch Gary's mesh. Gary's mesh will get you out to the internet, and then you can talk to Louisiana if that's what makes you happy. The next thing here is encryption enabled. I just leave it on, right? Nothing fancy. And then if you go down a little bit lower, you can see map report. The nice thing about map report is it shows people where you are. This is how I found out where Jason was, is map report. Good thing to have. These are all screenshots on that website. I'm just walking you through it right here. You see where it says Meshtastic here? Root topic. That means I'm going to talk to everyone in the whole United States.
Doctor has pretty
But I don't want that. No, I want, see where it says Mesh Hawaii? Somehow they figured out that's where I am. Right? Now, while I'm on that topic, so I'm going to hit save and then I'm done. There are two things that I forgot to mention. One of them is there are other people that are running other messaging servers. There's a guy in New Zealand who's running one. If you want to join that, you can, but you're only going to be able to talk to people who are on his messaging server. I've got messaging servers here in my workshop, but the MQTT one for Meshtastic is the one that everyone on the planet is using. So that's the easiest one to use. The other thing that's important is if you want to show your position, see right up here it says position. This only works if you have GPS in your device, or, important point, you're using your phone, because then if you say, hey, there is no GPS in my device, you see here it says enabled, disabled, not present. A lot of my devices don't have GPS in them. So when I configure them, like Jason does, I'm sure that Jason, when he went up and put his up there, or his friends went up there and put there, they say, oh, fixed position, not present. And then when they hit save, it takes the location from your phone and it says that's where the device is. The reason this is funny is you're going to see a guy named Dewey. Who's the guy that's out in the ocean most of the time? Duck or Dewey, or it's not Dewey. It's something like Dale or something or other. On the map, you'll see him in the ocean. Well, he's going and playing around with this. He's making the latitude and longitude the middle of the ocean. He's not out on a boat, I don't think. But he's goofing around. You're going to see him move around the map because you can put in any coordinates you want on this. But if you do it with your phone and your phones all have GPS in them, it basically does it for you. And that's a really, really good thing to have.
Is that Dog, D-A-W-G?
That's the guy.
The guy?
Yeah, D-A-W-G.
He's all over the place.
He's all over the place. Yeah, he's playing around with this. I don't think he wants people to know where he is.
Right.
The only other things that I should probably go over with you guys, and I'll show channels for Dewey, is go to user right here. You can change this name to whatever you want, but if you say I'm a licensed amateur down here at the bottom, that top one is going to change to your call sign. That's like a vanity plate for me. I don't really need to, but if you guys want to, that's how you do that. So that's the user configuration. The other one that's interesting is on Bluetooth. This is very important. Any device that doesn't have a screen, by default, the password is 123456. Now, I can't, some of the times these devices are not near me and I can't get to them and find out what their random code is. So every device that I get, I make the passcode 123456. I just found this today. You need it to be 123456 if you're going to communicate with your devices using MeshSense, which is that really cool thing that makes the maps. And that uses Bluetooth, but it has no way of putting the code in. So you got to use 123456. Gary, is that why you couldn't get to it? Yeah, I figured that out today. I was like, wait a minute, I just made this thing. How come it's not working? Like, oh, That's fine. And then the next thing to go over is, so pairing mode, make it fixed pin, and it goes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The last thing on this is device. As I said before, all of us on here should be client. The only one who's not is going to be Jason. He knows about repeater, and repeaters and routers are similar. Repeater is a router that doesn't, or a repeater is a router that doesn't show up. Jason, did I get that right?
Yes.
I think so.
And I think you may see mine come and go.
Right.
Because every once in a while I'll play with the setting and set it to repeater.
Right.
As I'm testing out the devices myself.
Now, while I have you on there, Jason, are you driving up to fix this, or are you using the remote admin?
I'm actually using my cell phone.
Yeah. So we can configure these things far away if you actually enable admin mode and you put a code in there. I have one unit here that sits at my desk plugged in. I can admin all the different modes because I put the code that's in there in every device, and I don't have to drive around the island. The other thing is I have a microwave connection to Waikiki, so I have a laptop up there that lets me administer those guys, so I don't have to keep driving up there. But if you can't text somebody for some reason, if you get a message that says acknowledged but failed, this is another thing I learned the hard way. You see where it says reset node DB? Stan, this is your solution. Remember you said you couldn't direct text? Hit reset node DB and it forgets all the nodes and it rebuilds them, because if the keys get old, it won't allow you to actually text with somebody. So you just hit reset node DB and it comes right back. Don't do factory reset unless you really need to. Okay, but that's another one I learned the hard way. It's not written down anywhere, but when you see reset node DB under client, that's where you do that. So if you can't message, so Howard, you were asking about channels.
Yeah.
If you're trying to direct message and it says fail, reset the node DB and then it works right away. Yep. Okay. Like I said, I'm going to show you all the wrong things to do. The other thing is about channels. Now, I haven't put any channels in this at all, but remember I said if I go to channels, this shows up. The primary channel is by definition, oh, I did put channels in here. Okay. Primary channel. Here's a couple of things to do. Out of the box, primary channel works, but the bottom parts here are unchecked. You see right there? You have to check where it says uplink and downlink enabled and then make your location accurate. If you don't, it won't work. So if you want to send a message on the channel, you have to have uplink and downlink enabled. Again, this is not written down anywhere. I struggled for a couple of days before I figured it out, and I was like, WTF? Well, how come they didn't write that in the manual? Well, there's very little of a manual. Then you hit save when you're done. Now, Dewey, you were asking about channels. When I want to talk just to people, my students, they set this up for me. Again, I hand them the phone and they go, hey, I set this up for you. So what you do is if you want to make a channel, if I want to just talk to Howard, right? And Howard and, his family, I'll make a new channel. You just say new channel, right? So if I hit save on here, you say add channel, you give it a name, and then it comes up with a code. And then you can send that code to your friends and they can add that in, or you can it'll make a QR code and then they just take a picture of it and it adds that code to it as well. So Dewey, I'm not sure how you're having issues with the 40 meter one, but you can see there's a very, very long code on there.
Right.
Right? Just make sure that that's enabled in there, but also make sure that the bottom part here where it says uplink and downlink enabled has to be done.
I haven't been able to find that.
It's at the
I've
bottom.
got an Android, and I think it's a really retarded version.
Could be. Yeah, no comment. Yeah, I'm not on an Android either. But it's hidden because if you're doing this normally, you go, well, it should work. And if you don't scroll up, you don't see that. So you have to have uplink and downlink enabled. Otherwise, the messages don't work.
Okay.
So that should help you out, Dewey, I hope. And then the last thing is if you get back out of channels, there's security, there's share QR code right here. Do you see the share QR code? Let me go back. Share QR code. Remember I just said if I wanted to share this with my friends. So let's say April has a community of people and she wants to hand out these little devices. This is what they did when Jason, you guys did the marathon. They didn't program every device. They made a marathon group and then they said share my QR code, and they clicked the button there that said marathon and it made a QR code, and then they just zapped it into everybody's unit. This is really great. If you want to do 20 or 30 of these things, it's pretty fast because you make the QR code and then you just zap it into all the things. You don't have to copy and write things down. So that's how you share the code if you want to talk to other people. The only other ones on here that I would stay away from security, unless you want your unit to be administered by somebody else or you want to administer your device. I would say stay away from this like the plague, because there's a lot of stuff. If you change things in here, you can break things in a hurry. Unfortunately, they put it right there at the top where everyone clicks through the menus. So don't touch security unless you know what you're doing. Is my advice to that. If you scroll down, you'll see some other fun things. If you have a device that has a display, like these guys are notorious for this. These Lily goes out of the box, the screen's upside down. I don't know why. Everything in there is printed right side up, but the screen's upside down. So what you have to do, well, see, it's right side up. So what you do is you go here to display and you say, flip the screen. Very, very simple, right? Another neat thing about these, and it's almost magical, is if you have a device that has GPS, there's a GPS chip on the side of this one. If you are holding this in your hand, it knows where north is, and it'll say, oh, April, she's over there. Oh, Dewey, he's back over that way. Gary, he's over that way. It actually knows by the positioning where north is, which is pretty cool. So if you're using this for like direction finding or whatever, I guess you won't drive off the dock into the ocean. The next thing to go over the small stuff is network. This is a big caution one. When you see network, okay, network only works if you have these devices called ESPs, which is short for Espressive. It's a Taiwanese company, so it's not subject to the tariffs or anything else like that. I'll get into Rockland in a minute. These devices have Wi-Fi on it. See that little squiggly guy on the side? That's a Wi-Fi antenna. And the nice thing is, if you enable Wi-Fi, so I go to network here, if you say enabled and you join a Wi-Fi network, you can talk to this device over your Wi-Fi, which is fun. But once you do it, it's really, really hard to go back. And if you get stuck, you got to plug the unit in and use Chrome to kind of like disable it again. I've tried it and I use it for remote locations where I have an internet connection. For example, we have one of these units down at Kauai High. So I put an access point. This is an access point with its guts open. You put an access point in there, you let the access point talk to the device, and then you can communicate with the access point back where you are, and you can configure the device over the internet. That's a very obscure sort of a thing. My recommendation is if you don't know what you're doing with network, don't turn it on. Here's the bad thing. If you have one of the devices that doesn't have Wi-Fi, it'll let you turn it on, and then the device is basically blind and deaf. So you'll have to connect this again and reconnect it. So I would say stay away from network unless you really, really need to. The only time I would really recommend, the only time you really use network is there are units like this, these repeaters, that actually have an Ethernet port on the side. And Jason, I don't think you use this because you aren't connected into the ham shack up there at Mauna Loa. But if you are running one that has Ethernet built into it, you have to use that, and it'll say Ethernet is enabled. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, UDP broadcast. That's another thing. If you're on the net, it'll actually show traffic on there. There's some really cool things if you're into the computer stuff. You can see all the stuff going by, which is just fascinating. And I think that's kind of it. There are another one that's kind of fun is at the very bottom of modules. You see telemetry on there. You see that? Now, if you're looking at any of these devices, I think this one probably has it. Let me wake it up. Yeah. It shows you the temperature and the altitude and the pressure and a bunch of other cool stuff. There's a chip in here, and the chip is incredibly small. It's 1/4 the size of a postage stamp. And it measures air quality, temperature, pressure, humidity, all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's built into a lot of these cheap little devices, like this one right here, this $30 device. I think this one actually has one on it. It clips right on here. You'll see these little holes. Yeah, it clips right on there. It costs $8. And then what you can get from that is you can get weather information. So we're using that to, we've made a group of these things that we're deploying by drones. And we are using them as fire sensors because the Pu'ukapu fire burned up, a whole lot of the Big Island, and we want to make sure that we can actually get that information. So all you do is you set these things out in the field, you measure their temperature, and when their temperature goes high, it's basically on fire. I think that's but for telemetry, you go to telemetry, and then all of the buttons look like they're there, and to turn them on, you just say when. So as soon as you say when, now it's enabled. And you can scroll through here and you can say, do I want to know the temperature, the power, whatever. The nice thing about this is as soon as I enable these guys, and you guys are on that page, if you're on that page, if you click on any one of my devices, I don't know if Jason has his set up. If you click on any of my devices, you'll see how much power I have, how much battery I have, and the temperature wherever that thing was. It shows up as a little window. So if you are looking at meshsense.affirmtech.com and you click on the devices, I'm not sure if it shows on that map, actually. I should show you another way. If I could get off the screen, I could show you, but I can show you here. What you can see is you can see detailed information about the other devices, if that's of interest to you. If it's not, then skip it. I've talked a lot there. Let's get back to questions. Anything else? Other questions?
Yeah, Bill, I have
Yeah.
a question.
Go ahead, Ted.
You had mentioned previously about the firmware, and you recommended 2.6. Why is that?
Thanks for asking that. I forgot all about that. So 2.6. 2.6 included a web page. So if you flash one of these devices that has Wi-Fi on it, which is the ESP units, then this has a web server built into it. I know, look at how small that is. The web server is in that little chip right there. And you can actually interact with this as a web page. You don't need the Meshtastic app. You go to the IP address if it's on the Wi-Fi, and a web page shows up, and you can do all of that kind of stuff. This is great if you have a device that's someplace you can't get to with Bluetooth, because Bluetooth is 30 feet. So 2.6 enabled a web page. So when you flash the firmware, you'll see full erase, and when you click on that, a button shows up that says include the web page. Now, if you've been doing this for a while, again, I started this just a couple of months ago. They didn't allow everybody to have 2.6, so that it was a developer version. And I'm not making this up. You had to go to the page, and then you hit the up button twice, the left button, right button, left button, right button, then press U and D, and then it showed up and you could download it. I don't know where they came up with that, but that's how you used to be able to do it. Now it's just it's one of the default ones. Also, when you go to the firmware page, there's no like normal, there's beta and alpha. Now alpha is like bleeding edge, but I put alpha on a lot of my stuff. Beta is the stable one, which is 2.64 today. And again, you only do this once. The only difference really is if you are flashing older devices, it's best to bring them into your office or wherever, or take your laptop out to them and do them with the USB thing. You can flash some of these things. It's called OTA. If you see OTA, that means over the air. I wouldn't recommend it because if you lose the connection, you can't brick these things. I've burned one of them out. I got to show you that. I've got one that's burned up. This guy right here. And here's why. So if you guys are getting into doing this and you're not just buying a package like this, which I recommend for most folks, buy this. If you're going to build one, you may notice something funny about that. You see the red wire and the black wire. Those of us who tinker with stuff, we know that red means positive and black means negative. But if you look closely at the device, positive is over here. And it's not written down anywhere. So if you plug the battery into this is the battery connection. If you plug the battery into this, it smokes very briefly. And then this becomes, useless. The other interesting thing about this is these are built to be put out in the field, because what goes here is a solar panel, a very small solar panel. So we use these really tiny solar panels that look like, I'll open one up for you. They're like $8 on Amazon. They're very, very cheap. And if you want to put one out in the boonies, I imagine, Jason, you guys have power. This is like an $8 solar panel on Amazon right there. You plug this right into the device in that little hole, and then this charges the battery and it runs the device. It has a little USB plug on the back. So again, these are things I found out. So if you want to follow me, that's great. I'm glad I could be useful. What are the other questions? There's a fracture one, Travis one. Jason has 5. So glad to meet Jason finally. Can be surveilled. What would be the best device for others to connect to and grow the system? Liam, I'm not sure, where are you? Tell me more about where you are, Liam. I don't remember.
Yeah, Bill, I'm up on the North Shore of Kauai, up in Kilauea. I host one of the repeaters on the All-Star system,
right?
And I want to say there's about 5 amateur radio operators in my neighborhood. And I was just thinking if I host a repeater, then I could host something that would allow other people to connect into it, or do you just put a device up and call it good?
Call it good. You connect it, and as long as it's connected to the web, the other people will get to it. There's no letting people on or letting people off. It's not like 2 meter repeaters, where you got to have the activation code. There's no such thing as that. There's no tone. But what I will ask you is on 144, the 2 meters, can you reach Oahu?
Uh,
Because unless you're,
I know people in the neighborhood that have reached Oahu. I have not personally.
are you down by the lighthouse or up in the Mauka?
Yeah, up down by the lighthouse.
Well, if you're
Not
by
all the
the
way out there,
lighthouse,
but in the middle of the neighborhood.
my guess is that all it would take is someone like Jason or someone on the Waianae coast. And as this grows, I don't know if you came in at the beginning, but remember I said that there used to be just Jason, myself, and a couple other people doing this. And now, I
Right.
mean, if you look at the map, there's 24. And on Maui, same thing. Stan was one of the first guys over there, and I think now there's about 8 guys. Um, so men and women, I don't mean guys that way, but as far as your connection to other places, if you're in Kilauea, you're basically facing Nanakuli and Waianae. I would
Right.
recommend as soon as someone in Waianae gets it, you're going to start seeing connections. That would mean, yeah. Steve says he gets 2 meters to Oahu. Yeah. Yeah, there
There
you
you
go.
go.
Yeah. Good. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. Now, Denning is one of those guys who's right at the top of a hill. I mean, God smiled on him when he was doing radio because he's at the peak of a mountain. And I think Denning, I can communicate with you on both 2 meters and other bands direct from Waimea, which is there's a lot of stuff in the way and it shouldn't work, but it does. So again, altitude is everything. I think Jason mentioned that as well. Jason, how high is your house? You're in Hilo Town or up at Malca?
Yeah, I'm probably only about 800 feet. So right in town, upper in Waiakea.
Waiakea, yeah.
Yeah. And
Uh,
this is actually one of my nodes with the solar panel.
oh,
And it
cool.
looks sorry. This is it. I'll leave it out.
It's exactly what I use. Yeah.
And the solar panel has actually been reused. It was actually for my pump, my fish tank pump.
Those work great. Another
Yeah.
people are doing is they're getting motion detector lights that come with a solar panel because it's just the right size and you can get them really cheap. Yeah. Jason, what you have in your hand is exactly what I have up in Waikiki. The exact same box. Yeah. We thinking on the same plan there. Yeah, that's great. And it's waterproof and everything else. If you get into doing these things out in the remote areas, I mean, please let us know so we can all share our stories. Because as you can see, Jason and I came up with the same thing independently, but there's no reason why we can't share our successes on these things.
Hey, Bill,
Yeah.
question? Yeah. If I flash 2.6, it says you have to save your private key, blah, blah, blah. And then reinstall it. That's if you want other people to find you again. I haven't connected to many people. So if it just creates new ones, I just have to connect to myself multiple times so I see myself again. Is that correct?
Yeah, let me explain that. The only reason
Okay.
that you'd want to keep your private key is if, number one, you've had a conversation with somebody else and you can't talk to them. When you change your private key, that conversation needs to be refreshed, and that's the reset node database. So anyone who can't reach you will just reset the node database. Then you guys agree on a new public key. There's 3 keys. There's yours, theirs, and the public, right? PKI. But the interesting thing is the only other time you'd need to store that private key and and put it in again, you can just copy it and put it back in. There's no crime in that. Is if you're administering devices remotely because they're waiting to get your private key. And if you change your private key, that remote admin thing doesn't work anymore. But that's the fringe, those people. The short answer, Gary, is if you don't copy the key, all people have to do is reset the node database. But there are a lot of times when people say, I can't reach you anymore, and they don't know that trick. So that's why I tell
I don't see the reset node database in the Android.
yeah, Dewey was saying that too. I'm not sure where that is on the Android. I would tell you if I had one, but it should be under client, or under user. Nope, it's not under user, it's under device. Yeah, right under device. That's where I see it on mine. Right
Yeah, that's you should get with the rest of the planet and go Android. Why do you have to go easy and make things simple for
Yeah, I know,
yourself?
because I don't
That's
like to spend my
ridiculous.
time fixing stuff. Um, anyway, yeah, if you do that, then you should be okay. Another thing that's interesting is if you click on nodes here, I don't know if you guys have done that before. This is really fun. You can scroll through here and you can see all the data. Remember I said you can tell the temperatures and stuff of certain devices? I know Gary, you're nodding because you've seen this. It's an education how many people are out there. Now this is, wait a second, what device am I talking to? I'm talking on this device right here. This guy right here is seeing all of these people, and I live in Waimea facing south. So by all that we know and hold sacred in RF, this shouldn't work, but it sure as heck does. But what I will do is I'll show you something on the screen here, which is important. Go
And
to the top.
that's not using internet capability. That's just direct. Is that correct?
This one here is using a whole lot of internet connections, but I'll explain why. If you look right here, you'll see signal good. So this one here is the device that I'm on. If you go down here and it shows me what I'm on. Yep, there it was. If I go back to nodes, Bluetooth nodes, if you scroll down here, you're going to see signal strength, right? As you keep going. I don't know if that's visible for you guys. It looks out of focus to me. But if you keep going down here, you're going to start seeing little boxes. And the box is how many hops it took. So April, you remember I was saying if you can't get to somebody in 3 hops, you can make it 6 or 7 or whatever. This is saying that, yep, someone else just popped up. If you have a direct radio connection, you'll see signal strength, and it shows you a little window on here. On MeshSense, it shows you all kinds of cool stuff. But this shows you how strong the radio connection is. Bottom line, anytime you see a little colored guy like that, you're talking by radio. Otherwise, you're using MQTT. And if I scroll down, you'll see the numbers get higher, 2 and 3 and 4. Well, I've set this to only do 3 hops, but you're going to see it's probably reaching the Oahu guys with 2 hops. Me to Waikiki to Haleakala to Oahu on this little one, right? But again, there's no such thing as a strong one or a weak one. It's not like, oh, I have 1300 watt amplifier on Maui and now I can talk to everybody. They're all the same. The power that they have is incredibly small. And you can see, I don't know what you guys have seen there, but see here, that says a 5. That's 5 hops to talk to whoever that is, right? So I don't know who that person is, but that's as high as a kite. Sounds like a name that, there's Dewey in Kona, NH6M. There you go, Dewey.
Nice.
There, you're famous right there. So to get to Dewey, I'm going 3 hops. And if I clicked on it, it would show me what those hops are. And if you look on the map, it'll probably say I went from here, Waikiki, Haleakala, and back to Dewey, like that. And if I wanted to send Dewey a text message, I click on this and I go to the very bottom. So I don't know how your guys' screen looks, but if I click on this and go to the bottom, I can say, send a message to Dewey. Hide alerts exchange. No, it's not exactly there. It's under messages. Let's go here to messages. So remember I said direct messages? This is the everybody. So if I click on this, you'll probably see a whole bunch of people talking. This is telemetry, temperature, whatever. And if I go back to direct messages like this, everybody shows up in an abbreviated form. Now, if I scroll through here, somewhere in here, there's Dewey. And Dewey, I'm not sure if your unit is connected or not, but I'm gonna send a message to Dewey in Kona. Howdy. 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 So I just sent it to him, and what you're seeing is waiting to be acknowledged. Now, if Dewey's device is on, it's gonna show up. We're waiting for Dewey.
That's funny because that's the same message that Jeremy sends me.
Yeah.
Howdy.
Yes, right. Yeah.
And
Well,
it's a
I got tired
special.
of typing test because it showed up all the time.
Hey, Bill, this is Denning.
Yeah.
I somehow stumbled sideways into getting my phone paired with my LilyGo T Echo.
Wow.
And well, I think it was you talking that, sort of telepathically got me
Yeah.
straightened out.
Computers fear me. Mhm.
So 6C0D, is that on your machine?
I think it is. Let me see. I've got a zoo of them here.
6 Charlie 0 Delta.
Yeah, I wish I could say yes, but I'm looking at about 2 dozen machines here on my desk. So
Uh-oh.
509 is me. E3C9 is me. 4A6A is me. E30 is me. B004 is me. 86A6. Oh, actually, here, all the ones at the top are the ones that are here in the shop. Yeah, I don't know if that helps you at all.
No,
But if you
no.
get down to where they're not radio connected, then they're probably a little bit farther away. However, what I'm going to do next week is go up to HPA and put a Yagi aimed towards you with just a device.
Okay.
And that should help you guys out.
All right.
We get a
Just
chance to see Stan's telescope. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. Dewey, did you get the message?
No.
No. This is why having a name on it is kind of useful, right? So if I say test again like this. So Dewey, if you go to yours and go to, remember we said you have to reset the client database if it's not working. So if on mine, if I go to reset the database, back, Bluetooth setting.
Where is that?
For me, it's under device. I don't know on an Android. Okay, Gary says it's not there, but if you go reset node database like this, it says erase device, and it's scary, but all it does is reacquaint itself with everybody else. And once you do that, here's what happens is it'll connect. It's connecting.
While it's doing that, Bill, so that unit on your phone is talking to which unit in your shop?
I have no idea, Howard. I wish I could tell you. It's I'm looking at there's a menagerie here, and then a bunch of them out there with antennas on them. I do know it's not going to be a direct line. If I turned everything off in the shop,
Yep,
hold all the batteries, it would talk to probably Waikiki. But you know where I live, and you know where HPA is.
yep.
I have a direct connection to the hill above the energy lab, which I shouldn't have because Buster Brown's in the way.
Right.
It works. So I'll try to send Dewey another message, direct message. But you'll notice if I go to Bluetooth on this and look at nodes, there's only 2 nodes showing up. So what it's done is it basically forgot all of the connections it had. And then it's regenerating that whole list. So to Gary's question about his private key, what the reset the node database does is say, forget all those keys, let's make new ones. So if I looked at the traffic on the network right now, it would be, are you there? Where are you? Are you there? Where are you? Are you there? Where are you? And it just keeps going through like that, and it builds that whole database like that. If any of you guys are into computers, it's doing what's called ARP, Address Resolution Protocol. Anyway, you'll see the node list is pretty small on this because I just started it up. I guess to answer his question, it's yeah, it's just talking between the devices in my shop right here. But I have a couple of machines in here. Oh, here's another thing on at least on the iPhone. If you want to disconnect from something, you slide this over and then it turns red like that. Well, it should. There you go. You see how it turned red? Yeah. So then you can pick other devices if you want to. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the shop here. Yeah. Yeah. So, Danny, I'm sorry, I can't see exactly what you see there. So I wanted to get onto antennas real quick before I forgot, because some of you guys asked about that. And Liam, I think you were talking about getting off island. The key is getting a bigger antenna that aims in the direction of the people that you want to help. So you don't want to be running it up to to space or anything. Here's an interesting, if you're trying to explain this to people, you can talk to the ISS 250 miles up with a walkie-talkie because it's line of sight. As long as you have line of sight, you're good to go. The signal strength is not the real limiting factor. Is it getting bent and moved around? So you're going to start off with every device starts off with a little antenna like that. And that's okay. It's hard to break. It's not flexible at all, but these are on most of the devices. It's good for being around town and whatever. If you want to go a little bit further, I'm going to show you something. This is a whip antenna, right? This is a pretty fancy one, but most of them there's a little whip antenna. If you look carefully, there's another kind of antenna that actually has a wire in the back of it. And if it has a wire in the back of it, I want to make sure I don't kill one of these guys. Yeah, like this here. If you see a wire in the back of this, it's not just to make it so it bends. The antenna you put on the roof of your car needs the roof of the car as the ground plane. So every antenna has 2 parts to it. This antenna right here has 2 parts in it. And the way you can tell is if you look inside, it doesn't look the same. So there's an inner part that goes to the top part and an outer part that goes to the bottom part. And it basically makes a dipole out of this. So you don't need a ground plane. These have way, way better performance than something that's just like this, that's a stick. Okay, so if you are dealing with portable units, you want to get the antenna that's actually, it'll say dipole antenna, or if you look at it, it has a wire going in the middle of it. You can see the wire on a lot of them right in there. You see that wire in the little crack? Yeah, if you see the wire in there, that's good. If you see, if it's advertised as dipole, I got these from Mauser. They're only $4 or $5 a piece. I found these on eBay. Someone sent me a bag of these things for $12. So eBay is a great place to get these guys. Also, and I hope there's no postal inspectors on the call, if you can't get batteries, people on eBay send them to you, no problem. The beautiful thing about this package right here, if you really want to get into building stuff, and this is not hard to build, I can't believe that Amazon sells a battery. We were all in Hawaii. When was the last time you got Amazon to send you anything with a battery in it? No way. Amazon sends this to you just fine, and it has a lithium battery inside it. And basically, you're building one of these devices, which is really, really handy. I mean, it's useful. Has a little screen on it. You can see it resuming. Yeah, that's a real cool little gizmo. See, it's already picked up everybody. Probably talking to Stan. And this is basically called an ESP32. They call that an ESP32. I don't know why, but these guys, this is packaged in Germany. Maybe that's what makes it all sanitary or whatever. But really, really good, useful thing. So that was antennas. There's a whole bunch of advanced stuff, but I don't want to bore you guys. We've been on this for a while.
Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
Okay. I can show you this antenna that I've been building and seeing how we can do that. And on the very top where my finger is over there, I can put the stubby thing that would be the driven element.
Yep.
And then down where my hand is, I'll stick it into the unit over here. And then I found a connector to do that, and we'll see how that thing works. So, and the unit is right on the top of my head right now, if you can see it. And it's on, but I don't know why. You can see right at the top of my head. I just move my head. That's where the unit is located, and outside by the window. And sometimes it gets connected to Hale Akala, but sometimes it doesn't. The last time it looks like it was last connected about 7 days ago. So I don't know why it's doing what it's doing. Yeah. And I'm saying I'm at a loss. Right now, I'm seeing a whole bunch of stuff coming in. In fact, the last time I saw somebody from North Chicago or something was in there. So I have to limit my amount of stuff I'm getting. I get a lot of beeps on my phone because of that, you know.
Right. My suggestion, Stan, is I'm looking at the map and there's some guy named Tav M a few blocks away from you in Makawao. Your antenna is too good. It's aiming like a telescope right at somebody. So dumb down your antenna a little bit more. Try getting one of the simple ones, maybe a dipole one. Because it's not power for you. It's unless you want to go, talk to Tad, but that would be a reach. But you're basically making Yagi. You're probably up around 10 or 12 dB, so you're focusing in a really good direction. Another thing, I'm glad you brought that up. Really important. Look inside this little puka right here, and you see the little pin sticking out? Okay, you think I know what I'm doing. I couldn't understand why one of my units wouldn't work. And it turned out that I had an antenna on it, and the antenna, you see the little pin sticking out there?
Yeah.
Most of these devices, they have the other end of that. They have the female version of that. See the little female, the pin goes into that. A lot of the antennas don't have the pin. And so you screw it in and it goes, well, I don't know why it's not working. Well, it's not working because the pin's missing. And so be very, very careful. This is me today. You wouldn't believe it. So
you've got the regular SMA and reversed SMA.
Right. And some antennas come out of the box with reversed SMA, and it's maddening. So if you get an antenna and it comes with a little gizmo that looks like this, don't throw it away. Because what this does is this connects when it has the male part on one side and the male part on the other side. and it won't tell you, you won't know. You'll just go, well, it's getting some stuff, but it's not talking to anybody else. And I couldn't understand why. It was sitting here on the bench and it only would see the things in the shop. And it turns out that the reverse SMA, like Dewey said, the connector on it was wrong. So make sure whatever your antenna is matches the unit when you plug it in. If this is female, that has to be male. And I'm not going to get into the details, but you guys get the idea. And then what I do is a good thing if you're going to do experimentation, like connect things to antennas like Stan is doing, is you can get a box of little connectors like that on Amazon for $12. And then if anything ever doesn't work, you've got the adapter for it. That's a real good solution there.
That's how I got my antenna. That thing, it's got the, I guess I got a end connector. It's like adapter for that. So I have two males connected on that, and
This is
so
what Dan's talking about. That's an
correct.
end connector. Dewey loves these.
Yeah.
And then there's an SMA connector.
Correct. Right.
So when I build units out in the field, I screw the big antenna into this so that it's strong, and then we screw this into the bottom and you put the unit inside the case. So that's like
right.
That unit that Jason showed you, that's what we do.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. So this is the unit that I'm using that you can probably see the last connection with Halakla at 7 days ago. It shows over there, but I don't know if you can see that. But anyway, that's the unit. But I've been working with Gary. Gary's been so helpful in getting me started now. I have to limit to get only Hawaii instead of all over the country. That's another issue. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Gary knows a whole lot of this stuff. Like I said at the beginning, we're all learning together. So if I'm of any help in this, it's because I've done all the wrong things and I'm trying to save you guys some time. But as I mentioned, I just made that antenna mistake a couple hours ago. So there's still stuff to be discovered, and I'm sure there's going to be more. Where this is going in the future is, I think, to you Kauai guys, you're going to start to see more and more of them on your coast. Maybe it's you guys, maybe it's your friends. April, I would recommend you get some of the simple devices and pass them out at your next emergency meeting, and then we'll of course bring that up at the next radio meeting, which is in a couple of weeks. Howard will be there. April, I think you were there on the Zoom thing. I'll send that to everybody who's on this. And there's no reason why you can't, learn from what we're doing. But if you have any questions,
Bill.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that the Meshtastic thing on my Android phone is junk, and it's not letting me do a lot of the stuff that you've showed us.
Mm-hmm.
It's driving me nuts. Is there a program that I can hook this onto my, drive this directly with my laptop?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Your laptop has to be Windows 11 or newer, and you download Chrome and go to the Meshtastic website, and there's two programs there. One's called the Web Flasher, and one's called the Client, or the web administrator. I wouldn't use the Android phone unless you really had to, but that's the best way to do it. If you're using a Mac, I know Kona Bob had an issue with his because his Mac is so old. You have to have a newer Mac to run the program. I think it's 1013 and newer, or 1015 and newer. And if you have any one of the Silicon Macs, the newer, it's the M1s, 2s, and 3s, it works perfectly.
Now, do you have to download the Chrome browser?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It works on Edge as well, but not as well. Chrome works really, really well. I tried it on Edge and it's clunky, but Chrome is the best way to go. And Chrome works on the Mac and the PC, by the way. So once you download Chrome, you can kind of do it all.
Okay.
It's not a shill for Google.
Computer?
Not yet.
Other questions? Anything else?
I'm glad that we're not having to start our car with a crank.
Howard, we're here in the conversation.
Yeah, my wife is trying to get me to upgrade my computers here, and I've got a laptop that I run for taxes with the newer chip, but I like my old system.
I don't want diamond rings or anything.
Patty, I'm on your side.
Other
computer. And new Mac, new wristwatch.
We started a fight.
Okay, sorry.
One comment.
Didn't I? Yeah.
Just one comment.
Yeah, Bill. Go ahead.
One comment. If anybody wants a copy of this whole Zoom session, video, exactly what you're saying, just send me an email at secretary@kauaiarc.org, and in a day or so I'll post a link, and anybody can view this. I thought this was a really great informational presentation, and it's will be a video available to anybody you want to share it with.
Thanks, Bill. I appreciate that. Something just popped up on the map, and you just reminded me of something. If you guys are on that site, meshsense@firmtech.com, look down in Ocean View. That's 6FC. That's Chris. Gary, isn't that Chris or Rick?
Rick.
Rick, KH6FC. So he's down there on Ocean View. So this is a good example for April and for Bill, you guys in Kauai. He's not line of sight to anything. So what he's doing is he's probably using proxy on his phone, and he's showing up on the map. You see down there 6FC? And he's an example, just like you guys, of someone who's out in the boonies, and if something goes down, then he's good to go. I'm glad to see he got that working. That's great. Yeah.
Hey, Bill, I got a question.
Right.
I enabled MQTT, and I'm not receiving the Hawaii stations. Why would that be?
What version of firmware are you using?
The 2.5.
You make sure you're using 2.6 or 2.64.
Okay.
Because then it shows up on the device as an option on MQTT. And then, Chad, the other thing is make sure that you are using you enable it in both places. So make sure you enable it under LoRa and you enable it under the modules. And make sure under channels you have uplink and downlink enabled. I know it sounds like a lot, but there's 3 places to go.
I've enabled all those 3 places.
Then it's probably the firmware, be my guess.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And you're on the internet there, right? I mean, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Did you enable proxy mode on yours?
Yes.
Then it should work.
Okay.
Try upgrading to 264.
Okay, I will. Thank you, Bill.
Sure. Any other questions? Bill, thanks for recording that. Appreciate it. Are we good? Yeah. We can do this again another time if you guys want. I'm not jammed up for time. I will miss the Monday at 7. I have to pick up my wife at the airport, so I'm not going to be on that one. There's going to be a radio call on 7090 at 7 o'clock on Monday if you guys want to talk to more people who are doing this. But and I think April, you mentioned there's going to be there's a Discord group as well, right? I'm not hearing you, April. Sorry.
She's not hearing either.
No,
April, I don't think you're on mute, April.
Well, I know because I'm trying to download all the. I don't have Chrome, so I was starting to do all this stuff while you're talking. Yeah, the Discord group is. It's guys being guys, but the fact is, there's a lot of links and a lot of stuff you learn. I mean, if you have time, I mean, there's like I don't know. 30 a day, coming through on that stuff, and it's all Meshtastic. But some of it is they found an accident but still, it's worth getting on Discord's Meshtastic if you're interested in this.
I think the most useful thing about this group is that we're all on a Hawaiian island, and we're all separate, but we all deal with the same challenges, right?
Yep.
The topography means we can't talk to each other like Oklahoma. And the ocean means we can't, go and drive and see each other. So this is really the best way for us to collaborate and get solutions this way. Yeah. Any other questions, comments? Yeah. If you do, I'm Bill at hpa.edu, and that's the easy one to remember. I also have another email that you probably saw in there, but check out the elab.hpa.edu page for updates. And if there are any comments that you guys have, let me know, or things I should add, I'll put them on there so that we can use that as kind of a repository. Anything else? Denny, was that you? Did you have something you wanted to say?
No, I was, I got a cheap Android pad. And I don't think it's phone capable, but if I link that to my T-Echo, could I see the maps?
Yes. as long as that you have Wi-Fi. Do you have Wi-Fi?
Yeah, got Wi-Fi.
Oh yeah, yeah. You'll see the maps.
Okay, and that's nice. Get a nice bigger screen. You know, well, not big, but it's 8 by 10,
Yeah.
so I can
Yeah.
Right.
see it
John,
better.
you had a question?
All right, thank you.
Yeah. John? No? Okay. We're just waving. Okay. Great. Well, anything else, guys? Nope. Great. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you, Bill.
Talk to you guys in